Hello and welcome to another Take 5 video. My name is John Recknagel, Precast Application Specialist, and in today's video we're going to be talking about a fundamental custom component connection. Let's jump right into the model. Alright, here we are inside Tekla Structures. Recently we've been signing up a fair amount of customers, and I've been getting asked a lot of very good but very fundamental questions regarding custom components, kind of what they are, how to create them. So I thought it'd be good to kind of do a video, very high level, very fundamental, of a custom component connection, just what some of the toggles are, how to set it up, and then maybe future videos we can take this component further and build some parametrics and bindings and whatnot into this. So to start off, we just have a very basic wall panel and beam. I'm showing them basically touching one another here. I have a embed cast into the wall panel. I have a loose erection plate, this yellow plate, and then I have a plate with tail bars cast into the beam. So very, very basic kind of connection here with no parametrics, no bindings. It's literally just some custom parts all put together. So now if you were modeling this for the very first time, you would have to model in the plate in the panel, model in the loose plate, and model in this plate. But through Tekla Structures Custom Components, we can insert this with a custom connection here. We're basically going to select on the wall panel and then select on the beam, and then all these elements will be brought in for you. So to do that, to get started, we have to go to our Applications and Components and then click on this hamburger button here, and then say Define Custom Component. Now once you click on that, you're going to be prompted with this Custom Component Wizard here, and you're going to be able to choose. Now in this video here, we're going to be working with connections here. You can insert a name, so I'm going to say December Take 5. You could put in a description if you want, you don't necessarily have to. The position tab, we're not going to get too much into the theory today. We're going to keep this video pretty high level, but for most instances, auto is going to be just fine. But as you become more and more advanced throughout your Tekla journey, you may end up creating some very advanced components where you need to control the position tab here. Now this last tab here for the advanced, if you're applying this component and you're wanting to have multiple instances of this, so if you wanted the same connection to be able to be applied again, a foot over, 2 feet over, etc., you're going to want to make sure that you tick this box here that says allow multiple instances. If this box is not ticked and you go to apply the component a second time, Tekla's going to say, hey, this component already exists, and it's not going to allow you to put that in. So very important that you tick that box if you're going to have multiple instances of this. Press next. This wizard is going to kind of walk you through what you need to be doing and what you need to be selecting on. So it says in the model, select the objects that will form the custom component. Now since this is a connection, we're going to have a main part and a secondary part, so we don't need to select them as objects within our component. We just need to select on the embed, the loose plate, and then the second embed. We're going to select next. Now Tekla says in the model, click to locate the main part. The main part is almost always going to be your supporting member. So your supporting member is your wall panel. Select it, click next. Secondary parts, this is going to be our beam. And then press finish. And just like that, you've developed your very first custom component. So now how this works, if we just delete this out and we find our component over here, all we have to do is select on the wall panel and then select on the beam, and then boom, everything is brought in that we told it to. Now right now there's no parametrics, there's no bindings, there's no real intelligence baked within this component. It's always going to place it at this Z elevation. It's always going to place it exactly right there in the beam, the center of the beam. But we're going to dive into inside the custom component just to kind of show you what some of those options and toggles and whatnot are. But this is a very fundamental of how to create a connection component. So, all right, and another thing to note here is that if you see this green cone here, this is the custom component symbol. If you double click in the background and go to your display options, you can see this component symbol here. You can toggle these cones on or off if they get in your way or if you don't want to see them. But it allows for a nice kind of visual cue. It's also another spot that you can double select on to open up your component dialog here. But let's maybe just wrap up this video with adding in a very basic fitting to the end of this. So to do that, what we're going to do is right click and edit the custom component. Now this brings open 4 new views. You can see it brought up view 1, 2, 3, and 4. I can actually close out of this view in the background if I wanted to, and then I will tile these so we can see them all. So this is now a view only for your custom component. There's going to be nothing else in here besides the elements of your custom component. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a very basic fitting for this beam, because we probably would not in the real world want this beam to be butt all the way up tight to the wall panel here. So we can go to the edit command and we can do a fit part to end. Tekla is going to say pick part to be fitted. I'm going to click the beam and then first point and second point. Now I'm going to draw a line along this wall panel face. So I'm going to click first spot here and then second spot there. And just like that, we've inserted a fitting here. If I go to my 3D view, you can see it's placed this nice kind of square rectangular piece here. And basically what this is this is a fitting. We've now fixed this purple beam to the face of the column with this fitting. And now why this is important here is I can hold Alt on my keyboard and draw a window over these handles. So now all of the handles are highlighted. I can right click, bind to plane. And then you can notice here, as I'm hovering over all of these faces, they kind of highlight for me. Now I want to bind this to the face of the panel, and you'll see why here in just a second. So I single click on the face of the panel, and I can bring open my display variables. You can see with that single click, because there's 3 handles here, I've just created 3 bindings. I've basically told all 3 of these handles to always equal 0 now, because these handles are touching the face, so that distance in my y-axis was 0. So all 3 of those will be 0. Now I'm going to add a variable here, P1, and let's just say we have a half-inch erection gap there. I'm going to name this, just maybe name it offset. So now what I can do is I can say, hey, D1, you now need to equal P1. And then I can just copy this, highlight it all, Control-C, Control-V, Control-V. And as I'm doing that, if we make this view maybe a little smaller here, we can see that now we have a nice half-inch gap. And you can see these little arrows here, these little magenta arrows. These are our bindings that we've created. So each of these, if I click on the fitting, you can see them better probably in this 3D view up here. This is going to be like our D1, D2, and D3 bindings that we've just created. So now, as long as this is set to show, when we get back to our custom component in the model, you should now see this variable here. Now, of course, we've modeled our embed plate and whatnot, so our embed plate's kind of hanging off the edge there, but we can also create bindings for that as well. But let's just jump really quick back into the model and see that this visibility for this offset is now there. So you can press the X, say save. We can open back up our 3D view. Here's our custom component. Double select on it, and now we have access to that offset command. So if there's variables that you want to have the availability to move here, so now I could set this to a 1-inch gap and move. And now you can see my beam is now shifting further and further away. Just do something extreme, like 12 inches away, and press modify. You can see now I have a huge gap. We obviously haven't, like I mentioned earlier, we don't have any bindings for this plate yet or anything like that, but we've just kind of created a very basic toggle here to allow us to change the offsets. So let's set this back to a 1/2 inch, and let's enter back into the component for one last element here. So if I edit the custom component, Tekla does not know to associate this beam to the cast unit or assembly of this beam, nor this embed with the assembly of this drawing. So if you did not associate those embeds when you go to create the drawings, Tekla does not know that this piece needs to belong in that drawing. So how we change that is we select on the embed, you right click, come to assembly, add as a subassembly. And now Tekla says basically pick the part where you want it to go. So this embed is added as a subassembly to the panel. This embed in the beam, I'm going to do the same thing, add as a subassembly, but now to the beam. And now since this yellow plate is a loose erection plate, we would not want to add these to either cast units here, right? Because we don't want this loose erection plate to show up on the production ticket for the panel, nor for the production ticket for the beam. This is just a loose ordered item. So we're just going to leave this exactly how it is. But now when we inquire on either of these parts, if we inquire the cast unit, we can now see that there's a sub-assembly for that EP7 plate is added there. That's good news. That means that when we create the drawing, that plate's also going to show up there. So now when we exit out and we save, and we come back to the model here, now we can inquire on our model piece here. So I can close out of this. Acquire the cast unit, and now you can see that that EP7 is added. So now every single time that you apply this component, you click on the wall, you click on the beam, it's going to automatically drop in those elements. You've got your fitting in there to control the offset, and it's automatically adding these appropriate embeds to the respected cast unit / assembly that it needs to be in. So I think that's where we're going to end our kind of fundamental Take 5 video here today, but maybe what we can do for future videos is take this component further and continue to build and bake in some bindings and intelligence. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much.